We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email John at nufcmatters.com to arrange today.
Hush now, city kids. When it came to me after so long, I didn't have no choices in the streets where I was from. When I think about the pain, I didn't have no choices. I took what I had sworn. Hush now, city kids, gather round for rubbing mitts. Hush now, city kids.
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. It is Geordies here, Geordies there. Slightly different day due to me working tomorrow, so I'm not going to get a chance to do a live tomorrow, I don't think, unless I get to do one a little bit later on. Might do one of those Q&As about 9 o'clock, but a lot depends on what time I get in. But welcome to the panel, as always, joined by Kevin, our lead, Steve, Stu, George, and Mitch. And of course, welcome to you at home. Just want to send out a message to Steve Wilkinson and his family. Just thinking of you guys at this moment in time. Hope everything is okay. But big love to the Wilkinsons. I'm sure I'm speaking for everybody there, lads.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, moving on to the first question in the chat. Not often I do this. We usually got a bit to say. Well, I have got a bit to say, but. Don't forget as well, halfway through the show, if we've got time, we'll squeeze in and ask George. So get your questions in for George. I can see one or two filtering through already. Somebody's actually sent us one on Facebook as well, which is very nice. Don't forget, we have got a Facebook channel, Facebook group and a Facebook page. Like the Facebook page and join the Facebook group. You can post stuff in there and we will pick it up from there if you're not on X. Okay, Peter Guy. Good evening, Peter. He says, evening all. What's the thoughts on Adam Crafton's story in The Athletic? It smells like a smear campaign to me. Just before the Man United investor gets the FFP relaxed in their favour. Funny enough, we were talking about this in our WhatsApp group about an hour ago. Mitch, this is the reason you were in front of your dad tonight, because I'd like you to give us your opinion on Adam Crafton's article.
Well, I think Peter's put it very succinctly. Something may be coming that's actually going to work in our favour, and so let's get the smear campaigns out. Let's point the fingers at the nasty Newcastle that's always been there in the background while everybody's talking about ownership, etc. This is not new news. This is a family lawsuit that's been going on against the Saudi state for over 3 years. The family are in part exiled in Canada. They tried to take it through the American courts. It was thrown out of the American courts. It's now being heard in the Canadian court. However, the last ruling in this case was approximately a year ago. And what the ruling did was freeze the family's assets and ruled in favour of the Saudi government, which should tell you a lot of things, really. This is a family who are desperate to try and secure what they see as their family money and their family funds. And that This is just the latest line of attack to try and attack somebody associated with PIF. Their family business was absorbed into PIF, amongst other things. And there's certainly enough, if you dig through the years of lawsuits, to have a little bit of mud to sling around. But as certainly Stu would understand, and Al Walid would very much understand, the complexities of these inter-family lawsuits in the Middle East are legion, to say the least. This is a particularly sensitive and difficult one, but the fact that he's found a way to work it into Newcastle United just because our executive chairman's name's brought up in the latest lawsuit, which I gather from the opinion in Canada is that this one will be thrown out as well. It's a non-story. It's just a non-story, and it's not even a new story. And this was all stuff that could have chucked around 2 years ago, but they were too busy doing other things. They're now running out of ammo and clutching at straws and trying very, very hard to link it in some way to Newcastle United and try, while Richard Masters is in the news again, to bring up owners and directors tests, etc., etc. I think it's pathetic, really, absolutely pathetic. And what's worst of all, very disingenuous to paint this as a new story. It's an argument, a lawsuit that's been going on for years. This is just the latest set of failings. There'll be more in 6 months. This is going to drag on and on and on, and they're going to go after individuals associated with PIF until the Canadian courts get sick of it, like the American courts did, or until they find a way to get some of their family money back. It's as simple as that.
Okay, George, feelings similar to your sons, I would imagine.
Well, clearly, we've not discussed it individually, but I've read what I can on the internet and what's available, and it's right. I mean, it's like any yes, more complicated maybe family disputes in the US, but all over this country there'll be people trying to rescue money that they think they should have had many years ago, and the only people that make money out of it are the lawyers, I'm afraid. And thankfully, as a magistrate, I didn't used to see much of that in our courts because financial things tended to go slightly higher up, except fraud things started with magistrates. But yeah, it's complicated, and it's the immovable object meeting the whatever. You know, it's neither side wants to give, but to be brutally honest, one side's so big and so all-consuming. It's like a fly nipping at a cow's bum. You know, it's not really going to happen. And as Neil's already said, they've already had tries in more courts than one, and effectively lost. And the one, I bet they're wishing now they'd never gone to Canada, because the Canadians did worse than make them lose. They actually froze their assets, not Saudi assets. So it's just complicated. But the thing that matters to me, and I think matters to all United fans, is to hear our club being dragged into something like that simply because there's a tenuous link between what's happening in the court and one of our senior officials. Well, that reeks of somebody who's desperate to have a go at Newcastle United, not Saudi Arabia, not the family that's fighting, but to have a go at Newcastle United. So it's a case of you dig until you come to Newcastle United, then you write a story. And that's what it smacks of to me. And that's apart from being poor journalism and poor professionalism, it's just an outrage. It's an outrage, and panders to those who still in the Premier League think we've got no right to be where we are. Well, as the time goes on, and it's coming sooner rather than later, they'll discover we do deserve to be where we are, and we are. going to show where we are. So, bottom line for me, it's a bloody good excuse to have a go at Newcastle United out of nothing. And as I say, poor journalism, very unprofessional. But it's got a story out of it, you know. So that's where I am with that, Steve.
Okay, thoughts on that article, Stu? Keep it decent.
I thought it was an amazing sports article. It was so much about the agenda, not agenda, so much about the thing he's paid to write about. Look, without opening up a different kind of worms, Adam Crafton has his own personal reasons to have a crusade against all things Saudi. But as has already been said, this is an old story. And as George said, I'm not going to re-quote his flying cow's arse, but there is two sides to every story.
Yeah.
And that article was clearly painting one side. But then every time it started getting a bit deeper, it was then, but there was no link to Newcastle United at all. But as often as you could, the chairman of Newcastle United, a letter was delivered to Newcastle United, and it's under the guise of it's a sport article. It's not. It's banging the old human rights drum, and it's a distractory article. That's my opinion, and I don't think we should give it much more credence, to be honest. I think the guy's just getting his agenda. There's a few like that, but let's see what happens now that the Qataris aren't going to get involved in Man United, which was quoted quite a long time ago by some people on this panel. Will they start pointing the guns that way and talking about that, or is it just Saudi that has a problem in the Middle East? Because from where I sit, where I live, where I visit, I don't think I've seen a country transform as much over the last 10 years as I have Saudi Arabia, and for the better, that is. And I think if every time I visit the UK and I'm speaking to friends and family, that seems to be going the opposite way, where the UK used to be held up as a bastion of all things good. It's now seems to be going down the pan, for want of a better phrase. So maybe people should get their own house in order before they start pointing the fingers elsewhere. Yeah. And this, I'm not saying this in defence of Yasser Al-Rumayyan. He's a very influential figure. He's treated like a pop star in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and he's highly influential. But I think Crafton had to be very careful what he's writing, because if not, to me, there's a case for him to be countersued as well, because there was certainly some hidden accusations there, if not direct. So with an article like that, to me, it'll be yesterday's news tomorrow, and it'll be chip papers, as I say, fish and chip paper. It's rubbish.
Steve?
The only part for us that involves us is the fact that a letter went to Newcastle United as part of the court proceedings, and this is the person who's doing the suing is someone who was the head of counterintelligence for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and if the only intelligence bit he's got is that he knows that occasionally Al-Rumayyan drops off at Newcastle to watch a football match, and he might be able to land a letter on his knee at the same time. Good luck to them. That's all I can say. I mean, it's one of those, as Mitch has said, and it's a story that we followed back during the takeover period from 2017 onwards. We knew that this was going on. With various sort of political shenanigans, we knew what the outcomes had been at various stages. We knew about what had happened. We knew who the protagonists were. The names are nothing new to us. The only new part of the story is that a letter happened to be dropped off not only at PIF's headquarters in London, but also at Newcastle United. And as I say, if you're the head of the counterintelligence, you would think you'd have a little bit more nous and you would know where Al-Rumayyan really was.
Al-Walid, this takeover has gone through 2 years ago. Newcastle have done so well in a short space of time. Does it surprise you that 2 years on, Saudi Arabia is still the target of journalists in the UK, like Adam Crafton?
Well, as you said, lads, it's like agenda. I didn't even look to the news about it. It's just we know all here in Saudi Arabia. We know all the story about it. It's just someone has a high position before, long time ago, steal out of the country with huge money, and it's boring case actually, but. It's easy to put now these days. It's easy to put a picture of anyone and put a spicy title just for try to play with words for overseas. It's different translation, but we here in Saudi Arabia we know all the story about. For Adam Crafton, actually, I didn't. Care, and I don't care about anything he wrote. Imagine he said he make an article. I remember he said Lionel Messi he lose on purpose against Saudi Arabia in Argentina. So what do you expect from someone says like something like that? So, I don't really. I wish if I can say more, but
no, you've kept it clean. You've kept it clean, and you've kept it respectful, Al Walid, which is what I expect from you on this show. So thanks for that, Kevin. It's another. you've heard the lads, and it's difficult when you go last because you're just repeating, I guess, what everyone else says. But this really is just another regurgitated story because of what's developing around it.
Well, yeah, I haven't even read it. I haven't been notified of it until like 16 minutes ago, so no real comment. It's just boring. It's the same. It's washed up. It's just regurgitated stuff. What's already been said in the past. So I'll just keep it short and sweet from my end. I'd rather talk about a bit of football than the finances and the political side of it. That's what we're here to do. That's what it's all about. But yeah, I'll just leave it at that. To be honest.
All right, we'll give you. Yes, go on, George.
Just to comment on something Stu said, I think is very important.
Yep.
About the fact that there's a real downer on Saudi Arabia. Mm-hmm. Some of the people that are doing the downing in this country need to shake their heads. Our government this week tried to pass a law, or is close to passing a law, for sending people to Rwanda. And to do that, they've had to bypass the Lord Chief Justice, the High Court, the Supreme Court. And who was the last person to do anything like that? Adolf bloody Hitler. I'm serious. That's true. And as a magistrate, it was only in the 1970s that girls that were pregnant before they were 16, we used to send them to a lunatic asylum, for God's sake. So, shake your heads, lads. It's changing. We've changed. But as Stu's made a good point, except our change is going backwards. And everything I see, this difference I see in the UAE from the 13 years I've been going to see our Neil, it's just incredible. Just incredible. Anyway, enough rant.
Yeah, I think you meant a mosquito, Stu. I can see you looking a bit perturbed at...
no, there's one flying about here.
Yeah. I think that's what he was talking about.
Right, okay, but there's actually one flying about.
Yeah, that's what he was asking.
Keep getting bits.
Kevin, we'll come to you first on this one, seeing as you had to wait all the, wait your turn for that one. Jose Mourinho has cropped up in our chat again tonight because it's, he's been sacked by Roma. It's the fourth sacking for Mourinho. This is the flavour of what we've seen in the chat. Mental to see fans turning their nose up at Jose rumours. The man has won 26 major trophies in 21 years. I don't want to get rid of Eddie Howe, but if it happened, I'd be privileged to be even linked with Mourinho. Alan Little. Would anyone have Jose, the little magpie in Tyne? I'd say no way, Jose. He's had his best years, I'd say. You're reporting you didn't know it, Alan. He could probably win us a trophy then upset everyone in the next year. In Eddie, we trust. Philip Shuttleworth. Do not want Jose at any time. Sacked from his last 4 jobs. What does that tell you? Would have had him in the past, but not now. Mixed opinions on Jose Mourinho, but the bottom line is, Kev, there's no job for him at the moment because Eddie Howe's in it, and I don't see Eddie Howe going anywhere. But yeah, the Jose Mourinho question, it's always an interesting one. It's always an interesting debate. mainly because of his connection with Sir Bobby.
And that's what I was going to say. I think he said in the past that it would be his kind of dream job, last hurrah, and it'd be for him to bring success to the club for him. He nurtured him through Sir Bobby in Spain and Portugal. He's been, Sir Bobby took him under his wing, so there's a bit of an allegiance there. But Eddie's in the hot seat at the minute. Jose, he gets fired. He has his own way. He's very methodical and all the rest of it. Like any coach is, like any management and any manager is, just how he comes across. If the unfortunate is that Eddie Howe does get let go, I would have him. But there's a caveat to that in terms of the brand of football will not be great. It'll be quite dour. It'll be quite, again, methodical in the way he plays. So again, it depends on what you want. Do you want to see swashbuckling football, going counter-attacking football the way we're playing at the minute? Or do you want to be in a low defensive block playing negative football and getting 1-0 wins every so often, but actually lift the trophy? So again, it depends on what you want. I would like a mixture of a bit of both. A different mentality, a different structure in the way he operates. I'm not saying that Eddie Howe can't do that, but I think he's got the know-how and the knowledge to, I think I quote Andy Townsend here from TalkSport, what I heard a little bit, you get you over the line. And I've said previously that Eddie Howe, I think he hasn't reached his ceiling, but he's getting to that point. Yes, we've had injuries and all the rest of it. We can talk all day about that, but I think it's give him another year and a half, 2 years, and see where we are, see where he is, and then I'll go from there. But I would like to see him at the club in some capacity further down the road.
Further down the road, I think we all agree on that. I don't think Eddie, I think Eddie Howe should stay and long be it. But we've got to face the inevitability. Managers don't last forever. Newcastle should have a plan, but it what it is, who knows? Somebody mentioning Rafa there. I'm not sure whether Rafa would come back, and I'm not sure half the fans would want him back because, again, Kev's just mentioned dour football. Jose Mourinho, if Eddie was to step away, Al Walid, is that a manager you would like to see in the dugout at some point?
Well, for me, I would like to see Simeone, not Mourinho. Mourinho, you said before, Steve, you think he will go to Saudi Arabia. I don't think he could come to Saudi Arabia because he's a difficult manager. Need the owner of the club. He need to be like they have agreement because Jose Mourinho when he's in a club he just have to be the first say. He have to be all his demand become handed to him, and the players now, it's more, sorry to say that, but maybe kind of more spoiled, maybe, like not like before. So very hard now. A lot of players doesn't like Mourinho. I think the way of treatment. I thought he will do great in Rome, which he is, but the problem is he judge. Usually Mourinho, when he went to be sacked, he always judge in public. So he forced the owners to sack him. So this is typical Mourinho. So I don't know. I think he will struggle to find a team that he can achieve his old glory.
Okay, Steve. I mean, it's for me, it's a pointless question, but it's in the news. Jim White's to blame, Steve. I think he straight away said, "Would you like to see him back in the Premier League this morning?" And I thought, well, there we go. That's the first one. And then he gets linked with Newcastle. It's almost like another thing to try and unsettle Newcastle United with. Yeah,
the guy's a genius, though. Let's face it, Mourinho, no question about it. He's managed to make £80 million out of being sacked. So, in my eyes, that's absolute genius, isn't it? You can't knock him. As far as the football's concerned, tremendous manager over the years. Came in, if you remember, 2004, hailed himself as a special one. And let's face it, for many, many years, he was special. he causes controversy wherever he goes. He's a smiling assassin. But I think sometimes, well, we know that he does have this ability to shoot himself in the foot, to get himself sacked after 2.5 or 3 years at every club he ever goes to. Would he do a job at Newcastle? More than likely. He's done a job everywhere else he's been to. He's won a trophy at every club that he's been to. Or his tactics, what Newcastle fans are looking for? Probably not. As we've already heard, 1-0 wins as opposed to 3-2 defeats, 3-2 wins, 4-1 wins, etc. This is the balancing act in the modern game. Always find him highly amusing, always find him highly entertaining, but I think his days are numbered in terms of the opportunities for Newcastle in the next 18 months to 2 years. And would he do a job? Yes, of course he would do a job. But Eddie Howe's doing a job at the moment, and I'm quite happy with Eddie Howe where he is.
Stu?
I tell you what, Steve, for a wee club of the Northeast, we don't half get them talking, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
Whether it's Crafton or whether it's this Mourinho story, it's all geared up to unsettle us, because any delaying tactics they can have, or stalling tactics they can have, for the inevitable of Newcastle becoming the biggest club in the land, and they're hating it. And to me, it's just unsettling. Mourinho, controversially, I think he's a busted flush. I think he's had his time, and his time was absolutely amazing. But it was a bit like Brian Clough at the end of his career. It's a bit sad to watch. Again, a fantastic manager at his time, but the game's moved on, and I don't think Jose Mourinho has moved on with it to the point. Yes, you can say that he won the Europa Conference League 2 years ago with Roma. West Ham won it last year, would want to win a trophy. But as I said, we haven't won a trophy for donkey's years yet. Everyone's still trying to put us off. So I wouldn't want Mourinho now. Had a time machine and he got the opportunity after Bobby Robson left, and I think that would have been fantastic. But he were never going to get someone of his quality or caliber through the Ashley years, and then he didn't really want to come when we could have had him when the takeover first happened to replace Steve Bruce. So for me, I think we need to keep the faith with Eddie Howe, and he deserves all our support. I think he's done so much for this club in such a short space of time that I think it's a bit disrespectful we're talking about replacing him. Now, if you can't factor in things like the two main signings in the summer, Denali and Bonds, £90 million between them. 17-year-old Lewis Miley's played more minutes than them two combined. Who would have said that after we just thrashed Villa 5-1, and we're all thinking that's it, we're definitely going to get Champions League again. So you can go on the flip side of that and look at Eddie Howe's record since the start of December, and had the league started then, I'm sure we'd be bottom of it. But there is mitigating circumstances, and I think it's going to be pretty telling what happens in the next 2 weeks of this window, whether the board want Eddie Howe to continue or not. And I'm sure we'll cover that after maybe the next segment or something about transfers and stuff like that. But the way I see it is, if they don't back Eddie Howe in this window, then they're setting them up for failure, and then they can move him on and get an all-star signing in somewhat off the Mourinho era. But for me, Eddie Howe deserves every bit of support he can get, and I'm sure he's sending out an SOS to the board as we speak. Save our season, because we're pitifully short in midfield, and that's not his fault. So Mourinho, great career, fantastic. I really like the person as well, but at the same time, I don't want him managing our football club, not as long as Eddie Howe's willing and able to do so.
I've just confirmed Ben Jacobs for Saturday, so we will do a transfer show. A few people have been emailing us and asking us if he was up for doing something this week. Yeah, he is. He's available on Saturday. He does do the rounds, of course, on other podcasts, but yeah, we will dissect a few podcast answers to some of the questions over the weekend. But George, thoughts on Mourinho?
Oh, I think Stu said most of what I would want to say, but yeah, it's one of these history things, isn't it? You know, when he was the special one, it'd be great if he'd been part of us as well then. But since then, his career has just been, well, as somebody said, the smiling assassin. He gets in and he upsets people, and I have to say, he lost me as a supporter when he really made some virulent attacks against players on air. That's not management. That's really has no place in any business, never mind football. If you're going to say those sort of things, you take the lad to the corner of the dressing room and shout it in his ear. But for God's sake, to do it in front of press and film and newsreels, nah, that's not what we want. It's not Newcastle United style. I know it never is, and certainly it never is with the man that we've got now, Eddie Howe. Confession: I was not a great enamoured when they appointed Eddie Howe, but I've got to say, on the playing field, most of the things he's done for me, he's turned my mind. Because think of the money he's turned into us by making people like Shaw and Lascelles and others who Bruce wouldn't even put on the bloody bench. Suddenly, people are talking about them as class players, world-class players, some of them, down to Eddie Howe and what Eddie Howe's brought. So, you can't deny that. If you ever been involved in football, to see somebody make the strides that, Longstaff as well, and to a lesser extent, Miggy, they've all made a great strides in football terms with Newcastle United. And it's worth remembering that the side that beat Spurs 5-1, I think it was at 7 or 8 of that side, couldn't even get in Bruce's team. And yet there they are battering somebody 5-1. So, no, he's earned the right, in my opinion, having been a doubter at the beginning. But from what I've seen, he has earned the right to finish his job. I hope he gets at least another season out of it, but obviously that might well depend on how the rest of this season goes. And Stu's right. If they don't back him in any way in this window, then are they sending a message that the die is cast? Because that's what it would feel like to me. Even if it's just loan players, he's got to have some support. Otherwise, otherwise the die is cast, and I would be upset about that, because that's not fair on Howe either. So, great manager Mourinho, loved him years ago, but that's the problem. It is years ago. It's too late for us now, and I know he has great love for our football club, because of Bobby Robson. Now I'm reminded of a Mourinho story, which I think I told on those were the days we did. When we were in the first cup and we played Victoria Setúbal, the Portuguese side, before the match, there was one of their ex-players was on the field kicking the ball about with his little boy. Well, the little boy was Jose Mourinho.
Mm-hmm. Good stuff. I remember that story, Judge. Brilliant. Yeah. All right. Last but by no means least, Mitch, just your views on Jose.
The time for Jose at Newcastle United, the ship sailed a long time ago, in my opinion. I think he would have been a great fit in many ways. I've always liked how he's respected Newcastle United because of Sir Bobby Robson. Called St James's Park Sir Bobby's house on repeated occasions, and always held the club with a degree of respect because of his relationship with Sir Bobby. But his time, I think, as a manager for us has sailed a long time ago. I think he's shown he doesn't necessarily have it in him to work with the latest group of players. I think he's been worked out by many players, and I think that's why he seems to last only 2 or 3 years anyway at the moment. Mm-hmm. He gets away with it the first year, he lives on it for the second year, the third year to work them out. I just don't see how that would be a positive appointment in any way, shape or form. And I think it would be a crying shame to disrupt what's being built because we've gone through a rough patch. Yes, questions need to be answered and need to be asked. And we need to be able to do that without being painted as Howe out or anti-Eddie Howe. It's not as simple as that. It's not for once with us a black and white answer. It's much more complicated than that. And the fact that, again, it's only a story for the press because it's Newcastle United, the club that they'll keep telling you aren't important, aren't a big club, aren't this and aren't that. Well, do you know what? Stop flipping writing about it. How about that? How about you shut your mouths and let us get on with our business, and stop trying to sell papers on the back of our name? That would be a good idea, maybe, but it's frustrating as hell. It's disrespectful to Howe, disrespectful to the club and the owners. Just let me get on, get this January window out the way, and then see where we are come the summer.
Like I say, we'll learn a lot about the owners over the course of the next 12 months, and we've already learned a lot about them in the first 2 years, but we will learn more as the next 12 months go on. But yeah, I think, yeah, it could be the next 2 weeks, but I genuinely think they'll stick with Howe. But they need to help them. That's one thing for sure. Okay, we're a little bit over the time for the ads, but here they are. A big thanks to all our sponsors: Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract, free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks again to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. If you'd like to order some, then give them a call on 01768 210 102. Go to the website mrvickies.co.uk or drop them an email, info@mrvickies.co.uk. A big thanks to United Group Travel. They're a family firm based in Morpeth with pickups throughout the northeast. No strangers on our tours, just people you haven't met yet. They've got a presence on Facebook and a website, unitedgrouptravel.com. If you want to make a booking, give them a call on 01670 632 460 or mobiles 0791 666 4174 0795 71 41654. Thanks to Darren Baldwin Funerals, independent funeral directors. Let us look after you in your time of need. They're based on Old Durham Road in Gateshead, and you can contact them at their website, darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk. Email darren@darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk or give them a call, 0191 478 2730. A big thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the technical side of things. And a big thanks to New Workwear. You can find them at newworkwear.com. If you want to help the channel, hit the thumb up to subscribe, hit the subscribe button, and share to your other social media. You can also pay a one-off fee of £25 to get a scarf, a cup, a pen, and a membership card. Go to the website, nufcmatters.com, and click membership, or put your smartphone over this QR code. We also support the food bank on this channel. If you want to make some donations virtually, go to nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk and make a donation today. We're also a podcast on Spotify, iTunes, and other podcast providers. Just search NUFC Matters. I'm also a part of the Northeast Footy Brekkie Show. You can listen to that Monday to Friday, 7 till 9 at thetooneuk.com. We've also got an event coming up next year. It's in January the 19th at the Tyneside Irish Centre. It's an evening with Nobby Solano. Tickets are available on voucher for £20. Don't forget, Supermac and Gibbo do every pre-match at Louis Liquor Store. It's free entry, children welcome, and there is great food by Fed's Fried Chicken. They're usually on pre-match and sometimes post-match at Louis Liquor Store. Okay, I promised to record the ads this week. Nobby Solano, of course, is this coming Friday, and we've been giving away 2 tickets for the members draw. So if you were a member, Good luck. Here's the latest one today. And to be a member, obviously you pay £25. It's a one-off fee and you get things like this. So the 2 tickets for today go to number 61. It's Mr. I. Charlton or L. Charlton. I'm not sure. I would presume it's I. Charlton. But thanks for being a member. And John will email you. But it's 7 o'clock Friday for the Nobby Solano talk in. And I have stuck a link in the chat. I'll do it again now. Thanks to Danny Mitchell for reaching out with this Toon memorabilia that he's asked me to push for him today. He has got on his website 20 items up for sale. Some of them are auction, some of them are for sale. They include a Shearer signed testimonial shirt, which you can bid on over the next 6 days. There are things that you can actually purchase, like a signed Almiron framed pick, Shearer, Joe Linton, Sean Longstaff, Gaza and Vinnie Jones, Kieran Trippier, Eddie Howe, and Gaza in the dentist's chair, Kevin Keegan, Gaza celebrating his goal in Euro 96 against Scotland. Sorry, Stu. Bruno, Gaza Italia 90 pick. Isaac's celebration against the Mackhams is lot 1 in there. And a signed Keegan, Beardsley and Waddle shirt, which you can pre-order for the event that's taking place at the end of January. So jump on that link if you want to and have a look. There's some fantastic stuff. All items come with a certificate of authenticity. But thanks to Danny Mitchell for chucking that in. Good idea, good suggestion. Okay, it is time for that moment that everybody looks forward to on a Wednesday night, but it is Tuesday. It is Ask George. First one's from Top Bobby. He says, can I ask George if there's an expiry date on the Gypsies curse which was issued under Charlie Mitten's reign?
Well, there is always on a Gypsies curse, isn't there? You've got to get the curse lifted. So the easy way is to find another Gypsy to lift the curse. But
well, there is one in the big market constantly, so maybe we'll go and ask her. We'll go and ask Rosie Lee if she'll pop up and sort it out. Blue Rhythm Boy says, ask George, are there any places that you'd like to visit that you haven't been to yet?
Oh, if he's talking just places to visit or football places to visit, I mean, I'd like to go to some of the big stadiums in South America, and I wouldn't mind visiting South America anyway. But there aren't many places I really haven't been, and there's lots of football places in Eastern Europe where there's some huge stadiums in some of the old red bloc countries in Hungary and places like that, which I'd love to do. So there are lots of places I'd like to go to, but it's a double-edged sword. There are football places I'd like to go to, and there are places I'd just like to go to anyway. And sometimes the two clash, and that's quite useful.
Okay, question from Alan Hall on Twitter. Question for George. What's his takes on goalkeepers punching the ball when they can clearly catch it? It always seems to go back into dangerous areas.
Well, you as a law knower, I have a thing about goalkeepers being overprotected anyway. I mean, I don't think the perceived wisdom's altered even since I played. The key thing for a goalkeeper is if you decide to go for it, you've got to get it. And if that means knocking your defenders out the way as well as the opponents, then you do it. But you must get your hand on the ball. Catch it, yes. But there are occasions when if you've got the momentum and you can overarm and you get the right punch and clear the penalty area, fine. But that doesn't always happen. Sometimes you punch it and it drops at the opponent's feet. But the perceived wisdom was always, and I don't think it'll have changed, that if you decide to go, you've got to get the ball. Otherwise, you're in no man's land. You're a dead duck. So, but personally, I like to keep it to catch it. I played a few times with a lad that played for, I've mentioned him on here before, called Brian Harvey, who played for Newcastle. And Brian was a great shot stopper, but crosses, absolute nightmare.
Like a vampire.
Yeah, my father used to say his hands were put on hot, whatever that means. and you know, he was a nightmare. but he was Charlie Mitten's favourite because he was very big, and Ronnie Simpson was very little. And you see, there's another one. Ronnie Simpson was, for a goalkeeper, very small, 5'10" for a goalkeeper, and quite slight because he would chain smoke bloody woodbines. That's why. But he overcame that by being very fit and very supple. Took ballet lessons and dancing lessons, anything that would give him the ability to get height so he could get his hands on the ball. I could count on the fingers of one hand how many times Ronnie Simpson punched the ball, whether when he was playing for us, whether he was playing for Celtic, whether he was playing for Scotland. He used to get the ball in his hands and like to get the ball in his hands. But that's what I would prefer. But,
Okay. Spenny asks, Bovril or Oxo?
Oh, Bovril, please. Oxo I love, but if it gets anywhere near Pepper, I'm in serious trouble with hiccups. I entertained the whole of the Gallagher Corner one match against Aston Villa many years ago. My father went up to the hut to get Oxos at half time, which we always had. But for some silly reason, he sprinkled pepper in it and he brought it back and didn't tell us. So 3 sips of the Oxo and the hiccups started. And when I hiccup, it's bad. It's real, that sort of thing. Well, after about 10 minutes, all the fools in the Gallagher Corner were copying us. So the whole of the Gallagher was going when I did it. So, Bovril, please, Spenny. Yes. Sorry, long.
Neil says, did he know Darlington for legend Lance Robson, who was known as the football and dentist when he was on Newcastle's books in 1958 to 1960?
Yes.
You did.
Yes.
Okay.
That spans the period that I was there. I started in actually going to St James's in 57 and stayed till about 61. So, yes, I do know who we meet. Yes.
And last one is for Kev. Brill cream or hairspray, says Spenny.
Neither.
He's
There's naturally good looking, this is how it comes.
He's a wind up. Okay, that's all for Ask George this week. Lots of questions coming in, so little time to cover them all, I'm afraid, tonight. But would the lads be disappointed if we sign nobody this window, Mitch? Would you be disappointed?
Yes.
Okay, George.
I think it's quite clear we need someone.
I think when I spoke about Howe, I said it then. If they don't give him some help in this window, then that, for me, that's the die cast for what's going to come at the end of the season. And that would be disgraceful.
Yeah, go on, Mitch. Sorry, mate. I was cutting you off on your prime.
Same point I was going to make. I think would be a disgrace. Now with the Joe Linton news, I think we've got to do something to give them some help. While we're waiting for players to come back. I find it interesting, this new name that's come up via Tim Vickery, who's somebody who's usually very much got his finger on the pulse of South American football. So let's see what happens.
Stu?
I touched on it before, Steve, when I said Eddie Howe would be saying save our season. And I get that the board don't want to be held to ransom and they see themselves as ace negotiators. But unless we get a midfielder of quality and unless it's signed as soon as possible, give them time to got another 12 days before, 11 days before play again, get them in as soon as possible. When we were talking about on the professionals on Sunday, where could we finish? And I said possibly as high as 5th. Well, if we don't get another midfielder in, we could finish as low as 15th. And because we're sitting currently 10th, there's 5 teams below us that could easily surpass us if we're playing with only 2 or 3 fit midfielders for the rest of the season. But by adding an extra space and then more players coming in, they can rotate those 3 positions with 4 people. We know that Bruno's going to get suspended. It's not a case of if, it's a case of when. And then I've seen reports saying let him get the card against Luton. Luton missed the Villa game. Fulham missed the Villa and Fulham game, and then come back for more winnable games. But we shouldn't have to think like that. And it's not me being dramatic. either way at the moment, it's possible. Our season now is on a precipice, and we shouldn't be spinning coins and hoping. And I don't want to go open the conversation again, but I know for a fact they've got more money, and I could break it down if I had longer of why I know we've got more money. But to keep it simple, if we spent 150 million, all the people we signed were on 5-year contracts. That means in real terms we spent 30 million. We got that for St. Maximin. We got more than that for St. Maximin and Chris Wood. So there is money to spend there, and it really, really great. So we're playing poverty, but I'm sure there's a big end game for it and the reason for it. But they've got to sometimes take a look and sometimes take a non-business decision, because if those 15th to 5, those places, I think it's worth about £30 million in the Premier League. It's not going to cost that much to get a player in on loan, Mr. Phillips. It wouldn't cost that much to have him in. And also, if we're finishing in the bottom half of the table, how is that going to attract future sponsorships going forward? We need to finish as high as we possibly can, and people want to be associated with success, and I'm talking about future sponsors. So they need to be seeing that we're doing what we can to finish as high as we can, because people want to be, as I said, they're just associated with success. They need to be spending money. They need to bring help in, and it has to be quality, not just signing someone for the sake of it. They've got lists of players for positions. They should go out and spend what they can to get what they can, and make sure that this season just doesn't whittle away. So that's my take on it.
Would you be disappointed, Steve, if there was nobody coming in this window? I mean, there's talk, obviously, by Eddie Howe and Darren Eales about financial fair play, etc. But the injury, as Mitch rightly points out to Joe Linton, has come since those two interviews last week. Surely there's got to be pressure on the club to do something.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would be disappointed, because simply by looking at the squad, looking at how threadbare it is, looking at the news that Joe Linton could be out for the season, there's a space straight away that can be filled. We haven't had Matt Targett all season, and if Matt Targett's not going to be there for the rest of the season, again, another player who could be dropped out the squad if you need, out of the 25, if you need to bring somebody in. So just looking at it on simplistic terms, people say, how can you juggle? We've got to bring someone in for all the reasons that should be mentioned there. The fact that we don't have enough central midfielders, and it also came up the strap line. We've only got 2. If Bruno's out, how do you play a team with a midfield of only 2? How do you shuffle it around? And let's face it, Eddie's struggling to shuffle the pack that he's got, with the injury problems that he has. So yeah, I would be disappointed, because I would see it as a bit of a letdown. Purely for the very fact that if you want to be challenging next season, you've got to be up there this season. We want to get European football back. We want to get the finances going again. We want to restart our season. We've got a cup 4th round to go for. Maybe we should be looking for players that aren't even cup tied, because we could have a cup run as well. We're not going to get a cup run if we've got no players to bring into the squad. So it does need to strengthen, even if it's just temporarily. I think it's very, very important that we do so. And I presume that's where Dan Ashworth is. He's running around trying to find spaces in the squad and trying to find people to bring in, rather than trying to negotiate his own little offshoot into Manchester United, as the press again tried to make out is happening. All of these things being thrown at Newcastle United in the media just to disrupt what we're doing. So yeah, we've got to get somebody in, Steve.
Yeah, I would agree. Sam, little FB, says, would it be worthwhile bringing Hayden back? It's not going to happen. Eddie Howe said it's not going to happen. In fact, in the press conference last Friday, his words were potentially giving Joe White the opportunity, whose loan deal is now expired. He's back at the club. He's part of the first team squad. He's gone straight into the first team squad. And he said that Hayden will probably get another loan deal, or will get another loan deal. So that's what they're looking at for that. Al-Walid, would you be disappointed if Newcastle didn't sign anybody?
Of course, and it hasn't to be Calvin Phillips. I don't know why we didn't bring players from south of France or Spain with a loan, maybe 1 million or less than 1 million. There is plenty of players out there, and I'm not really sure why we have to bring those players who are expensive, and we are in short. And for me, it was weird this time. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I wasn't giving it much attention. But for me, it was weird this window. We're taking too much about fair play and we're waiting reports. I don't know why this is not being settled before the transfer window from Premier League side. But I don't know, you guys, better.
Kevin?
Yeah, just like I said, very disappointed. I would at least expect 2 or 3 in, because that's, I think, the spine of a side, just to get us through until the summer. But not to disagree with Steve Hasty much, but I'll disagree with you a little bit in that it's not up to Dan Ashworth who players bring in. Yes, he might identify, but it's more on Steve Nixon, who actually goes out and recruits. So from what I know and hear, is his job's heavily on the line here if he doesn't bring anybody in. So again, it's up to him to do his job, and we know that Dan Ashworth, the centre spoke within the cog of the internal operations of the football side, but it's more on the recruitment department, division, whatever you want to call it. So just a little thing against Mr. Hasty there which I normally don't do, but
you're quite right.
Steve Nixon at the end of the day. So if he's not doing his job, then this is a failure as a transfer window to get players in, and he's had X amount of time to do so, 2 years, whatever the case may be, of identification of players.
That's the Steve Nixon who the Chronicle wrote about 12 months ago, telling us what a fantastic dossier he had and how he knew every single player in South America. He had a dossier going back where he'd analysed players for years and years and years before. So you're right. Steve Nixon has a big part to play. Absolutely.
But we haven't seen them. So that dossier, I could write something down and we haven't seen them yet. I mean, it must be a very intensive dossier that he's got to go through. But same as mine. No, but again, it comes down to that recruitment team of who and what. Obviously, there's needs, but you've got to find them. And it comes down to recruitment versus Dan Ashworth. And Dan Ashworth can shout and scream all he wants at somebody to do the job properly. If they're not doing the job properly as a head of recruitment or the head scout, whatever you want to call them, then your neck's on the line, not mine, type of thing. And from what I've been told, that's where the state of play is. And I think what I'm hearing is very worried about where his position lies.
Yeah. Dark by design. It's listen, that's something for February. I think there's a discussion coming in February, and they're looking at something in August. Profit and sustainability is going to be looked at by Richard Masters. It's as simple as that, really. It's clearly that it's not working. The rules are brought in to stop Newcastle spending money. It's causing hell on for everybody else because Newcastle's playing it by the rules. So now they're going to have to change it to try and catch us out. I think that's probably the best way to describe it. Stu and Mag, we'll finish with this. We'll go around quickly just before we finish on this one. What do the lads think about the pilot run of a Magpie march from Lees's Park with a drummer? Small scale, but still interesting to watch, inspired by our European adventure. Listen, I will go first on this. Anything that's gonna drum up an atmosphere, pardon the pun, and create an atmosphere, I think is great. The only thing I questioned is why it was so early. I think if they'd done it a little bit later to tie in with then going into the ground and continuing it in the ground, I think it would have been great. I wouldn't thank anybody for sitting next to us with a drum, by the way. But in a designated area, which is standing, I guess, for those kind of fans, I think it's great. And listen, more power to the elbow of youngsters who've decided to do something different, and it shows that they've brought something back from another culture. I think well done to them. I saw some criticism, and listen, we can all be old farts if you like and go, oh well, that's not for me, and what good does that do? But you know what? Let the young'uns do what they want. Good luck to them. It's a lot better. I'd rather see young'uns unifying behind the black and white cause like that than chucking pints of lager all over me and my mates when I'm standing in the away concourse. If they could do something positive like that, let them go. Good luck to them. Mitch?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'd say is I agree with you. It would need to then, timing need to be adjusted so it would be an introduction into the ground. But then again, it's a pilot. They've probably been given limited options on timings by police, etc. Steve and I haven't organised all sorts in the past. So they've probably looked at it as, right, look, we'll experiment with it this way and then see where it goes. If that's what things are done, if it's something positive, if it brings a bit of atmosphere, crack on. You know, it is a different way of stirring up a bit of atmosphere ahead of the game. And like you say, if it then leads into the ground and brings more atmosphere into the ground, happy days. And you're right, it's far better than chucking bloody beer around at £6 a pint.
George?
Yeah, loved it. I mean, I seen the end of it. The only query I had was, like you, why so early? You know, why was it finishing when really it should have been starting, in my view? So it finished nearer the kickoff. Or even if they could arrange somehow to let at least the people in the front with the drums at least finish it where at the big entry to the pitch at the top of the bottom of the lasers, just to let the people see what had happened. But it was youngsters. Yeah, right. Gee, great. I mean, people forget the word fan comes from the word fanatic. Well, we are Magpie fanatics. And if we've got some young Magpie fanatics, champion. More power to their elbow. And more planning next time, lads. And maybe with a bit of cooperation with the club, as you lads have said, include it in the pre-match atmosphere somehow.
Mark says, cringy watching them at St James's Metro with scarves over their face. They can't all be as good looking as you, Mark. And yes, Jules, I see you sneaking out of the chat, so I'm going to do a video about people leaving the chat early. Stu?
It's a positive thing, isn't it? I mean, it's not everyone's cup of tea, but at the same time, it's showing their affection and support of the club. And what's wrong with it? Sometimes people just like to criticise for the sake of criticising. They're doing no harm, and to me, it'll if anything, it'll give good publicity. And as Mitch touched about there, and you said yourself, I mean, first of all, it's sacrilege wasting pints by throwing them, isn't it? It's not a done thing. But if they're grouping together like that, that's the sort of thing that will build like amongst the youth. And you never know, it could be 500,000, 2,000 strong by this time next year. And maybe they'll all get places on the fans advisory board as well.
Oh dear. Al-Walid, what did you make? What did you make of the flags march, Al-Walid?
Well, it's nothing permanent except change. It's good for doing new ideas, and I think it's great.
Well, that's great, Al-Walid. Thanks. Steve?
It's not for me. They were walking too fast for me. If you know, far too fast for us old guys. No, seriously. I mean, if that's what the kids want to do, then great. You know, kept them out the bar. You know, kept them trying to get in the bar, all that type of thing. I mean, I think you've covered it quite well. The rest of you, you know, it's something different. It's something that the youngsters want to try, something that a group of fans want to try. And from someone who's been involved in fan groups for, you know, the best part of what now 16, 18 years, I can understand where they're coming from, because every generation does that. You mentioned Steve Wilkinson early on. You know, Steve was inspired to get involved much earlier than we were, when it was the original supporters club with Malcolm Dix. And now, you know, I've gone through it with Neil, and then, you know, it moves on to another generation. You've got war flags on one aspect, and then you've got something happening outside the ground. So if that's what the youngsters see a role for themselves in doing, then great. You know, that's fine. It's just not something that fits into my sort of match day experience, if you like. And I don't like drums very much, I must admit, at matches. So I'm like you, as long as they're not next to us, Steve.
Yeah, Tom Dixon was away as well, but I said he's a bit like Eric Morecambe at the end of the show, where he comes back with his carrier bag. He's going, "You're not going to sing Give Me Sunshine, are you?"
Give Me Sunshine.
It's cause of right. And now Tom's calling himself Roy Cropper. That's where that came from. Kevin, the flag march, last man to talk about it.
I'm used to it. I've just done something within the WhatsApp group of what I'm used to seeing every game at Atlanta United. It generates their atmosphere. There's an actual own supporters section, so they generated from where we're outside the Georgia World Congress Center and walk through the streets. And it was a slow burner based on that. They moved into Mercedes-Benz quite late based on the delay of the stadium build. But then it's just grown and grown and grown and grown, and it's created a big atmosphere when it's full. It creates a wonderful atmosphere. But again, if it's for you, it's for you. I don't get involved in the march. I don't get involved in all of that. If they want to do it, they do it. It'll create a noise. It'll create an atmosphere for them after their tailgate and stuff. So I think there's a bit of that, what they've seen, and whoever's decided to do it. Look, hey, if it creates a positive environment for people to get involved with something that they can sing and chant and do whatever we want to do, bang a drum before you even get into the stadium, because I'm not a fan of drums. I wouldn't want to sit beside a drum in the stadium. But again, with the War Flags collaboration and things like that, and you could say, agree with George, coming in from like the Gallagher end or coming down the stairs, that's what they do. They carry a big spike over here in Atlanta because that's synonymous to Atlanta and the railways and things like that. So if it's something meaningful to the club and positive for the club, and like a War Flags display, but if it's something different, what they decide to do, whatever they want to do, that's fine. But again, if it's for them and that's what they want to do, go for it. If they don't want, if we're not involved, if we don't want to, fine. Look, we can stand on the outside, watch and look and see what they do, and join in a little bit from the outside looking in. So yeah, it's great for me. But again, it's in its early stages, we should say. Being obviously a pilot, but look, go for it. If you want to create an atmosphere outside, like where the stack potentially is going to be, hey, create an environment for everybody to get involved. So not really a problem for me.
No, definitely not. Look, and at the end of the day, people will always come up with new ideas. Some of them will work, others won't work. But at the end of the day, at least someone is coming up with something. And like we've said, from our perspective, over the years, we've done a hell of a lot. Ourselves. We've done things. Steve's and Mitch have marched through Newcastle City Centre and try to do things to get the atmosphere up. When I was on the fans liaison committee, you're talking over 20 odd years ago since the fans liaison committee was in place. I actually did the very first flag day, believe it or not. And no, before anyone jumps on it and says, "Oh, right, so you started War Flags." No, and I've dug the picture out. There you go. There is me and Marion Williams, who is now on the advisory board. Who is now on the FAB, but that is me. At St James's Park, at the Strawberry Corner, 20 odd years ago, doing the very first flag day at St James's Park. It was something that we'd suggested, that flags would help the atmosphere. So, yeah, look, it's a front runner, but that is, I'm glad I found that, and I'm glad I dug it out, because some people just think we make things up on this show and blow our own trumpets. But, we have got a bit of experience, we did do these things.
Speaking of blowing our own trumpet, that was, and Mitch will remember this, Derek Lambias's phone call, where what I think is probably one of the most cringiest things in the Premier League at the moment is at Crystal Palace, where they have the kid facing the ground talking and going through a megaphone. And he actually wanted to do that. Lambias wanted to bring that in the Gallagher end, and he rang up and made that suggestion, and we went, "Whoa, yeah. Joking." .. exclamation mark, expletive. And that was to try and create an atmosphere before I think it was before the Chelsea game, and then there was the Middlesbrough and the Fulham games when Shearer was there. So these crazy things do get suggested sometimes by football clubs, not necessarily by supporters.
But I'll tell you what, as well, the club paid for them. And I tell you what, getting Freddie Shepherd to pay for anything, by the way, anyone will tell you, he still had his christening money when I knew him. But he did pay for that. He paid for multiple flags. There was one for each side of the ground, which were waved when Newcastle scored. I can't remember the game. It wasn't a Norwich scarf either. You might just be able to make it out if you zoom in. but it's actually my Mirandina scarf. That's what it is, which I used to wear on the odd occasion. But yeah, there we go. It's been an interesting show. We've managed to cover a multitude of stuff and managed to cram Ask George in as well. Tomorrow, I will try my hardest to get on tomorrow night. I know a lot of people enjoyed the Q&A. I might just pop on myself and do the Q&A. We are going to be introducing a new show in the next week or so as well. Somebody new is coming to the platform who I think you will all appreciate and enjoy. And we are doing Ben Jacobs again on Saturday. So Amigos, Superman and Gibbo, Thursday, 6 o'clock. Amigos is 4:30 again on Friday. Saturday, Ben Jacobs, and Sunday, The Professionals. So that's your week sorted. Just want to thank Steve, Al-Walid, Stu, Kev, George, and Mitch for that time. Thank you for watching. We're nearly 400 again watching tonight. Never take it for granted. Thanks very much for tuning in, and thanks to all the moderators who stayed the distance. Especially Julie and Tom, who went out and went in like the weather thing that I've got on my house. Okay, take care, guys.
Take
Good
care.
night,
Good night, everybody.
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.